Oh, hi. Uh, as you can see from my prop today, I'm going to be working on breathing again, or at least blowing. Now, there's a ton of stuff you can find online about breath, breathing tools or toys, if you want to call them that, the breathing bag, the breath builder, all kinds of spirometers, and all that stuff is good. I might do a video on that, on those things at some point. But the most important thing for us to be working on is to develop our own sense of what is good breath coordination. And that's one of the hardest things to do. It takes time and patience and extremely vivid observation of what your body is doing. You can get visual feedback, you can get feedback from sound, oral feedback, or you can get feedback from things that you see the results of the air. That's another form of visual feedback besides the mirror, obviously. So I got this little pinwheel here today, and I'm going to suggest an exercise to you, and I'm going to point out some things that are they all tend to have problems with. So I have this, and what's my goal? So I set myself a goal. I'm going to keep this spinning at the same rate. And whenever I need to take a breath, I'm going to take a breath, and I'm going to take it quickly, and I'm going to keep the air flowing evenly and smoothly, and try and keep this pinwheel spinning at the same rate. Now you see when I stop blowing, the pinwheel stops rotating. And it takes a little while for that to happen, but eventually it comes to a stop. So if I make my goal to try and keep the pinwheel spinning at exactly the same speed, I'm going to need to get a really, really fast breath. And if my goal is to get that really, really fast breath, I'm going to tend to be building tension and probably not paying attention to what my body is doing. So what I want to suggest is, if you use something like this, and I'm going to do something with a couple of sheets of paper in a second, so you'll see what I'm talking about. You can use anything. It's just something where you can see your air. You can take a strip of newspaper, if you still get those, and cut like a 2-inch wide strip off, and tape that like in a door frame or something. And now you have something that where you can see what the wind is doing. You can see if you aim air stream. Well, I'm going to do a video, at least one on that. Air stream, critical importance in wind instrument playing, but especially in brass instrument playing. So you're forming an air stream. In other words, the air, we talked a lot about flow. Okay, now we're talking about focusing that relaxed flow. Now you can just use flow. You see, I'm not focusing the air very much, but I am making it go in a certain direction. That's airstream. More detail later on that. What I want to focus on today, is the fact that we need to pay attention to the kind of the bedrock, the basic skills that we use. And the only way we can do that is to watch with our physical sensation, to watch with visual feedback in a mirror, and to watch the results. But if I make the results something that's difficult, I'm going to build tension. So the first step is just blow a simple stream of air. You can hear, I hope, quiet stream of air, and when I interrupt that with my finger or with the pinwheel, you'll see there's a lot of energy in that airstream. But you don't see how much energy until you have the pinwheel in front of it. Now, obviously, if you move the pinwheel farther away, now you're going to have to be more diligent about your air stream, about how you're focusing the air. And just like the beam of a flashlight, for example, or headlights in your car, unlike a laser beam, which is much, much more focused, like a normal beam, like a flashlight beam, that air will tend to spread out as it gets farther away. It doesn't stay collimated, just all in line. And so we lose a little bit of energy, lose a little bit of focus. And that skill is something that's very strongly related to playing the trumpet. So more work on that later. That's a tough one. And it's one that most people have a lot of problems with, and some people are masters of, and you can hear it in their playing. So what can you do with this pinwheel? Well, entertain yourself. But first, it gives you an ability to see results from what you're doing with the air. See results, not just hear them. Now, if you think about how a young person who is excited about their birthday party is going to be blowing out the candles on their cake. This, if you can get this picture, you'll get the idea. So the natural tendency is they got that cake with the candles on it, and they want to make sure they blow them all out so they get their wish. And so they go like this. That's a starting point. And we talked about this a little bit before if you've seen some of the other videos I made. You see the position of my head and you hear the tension. Why? Because I'm trying to blow hard. So the first thing you need to do is don't worry about blowing hard. Be trying to release the air as smoothly and relaxed as possible. Now, if you want to compare it to something else that's similar to something that most of you are probably familiar with. If you think about throwing a ball, you can wind up and try and throw that ball real hard, or you can just toss it. So what we're doing most of the time is we're just tossing the air, and that's where it starts when you're trying to learn how to use the air properly. It starts with easy throw. So something like this can help you with that. And you can make up your own exercises if you're creative, and I strongly encourage you to attempt to be creative, but they should be exercised with a purpose. So when I do this, my purpose is actually pretty simple. Last time I talked a little bit about the edges of the rib cage and how you have different sets of muscles and how the rib cage actually flexes and works, how your spine works. And you can do a tremendous amount of research and work on it, but none of that means anything unless you can feel it. So when we do something like this, we're trying to get a feel for throwing the air. So I'm going to give you some basic tips. To review, if you look at sideways, roll the shoulders. Now they get heavy. I let them go and they go back and down as far as possible. I just release them and my chest is open. So when I breathe and I blow, it's not, so you're not accessorizing the normal breathing system, the breathing muscles that should be working. You're not trying to help them. This is one of the most important things about getting a relaxed inhale and exhale, is when we're under duress, when we're worried about playing the high note, we're anticipating tension and difficulty. We're anticipating a certain level of effort, exertion. And so our body naturally responds by building tension to get ready for that exertion. So most of our job as trumpet players is learning over the years is how to play with balanced exertion and eliminating any unnecessary work. There is a lot of necessary work, but it's a great deal easier if you don't anticipate it by producing tension. So all I'm going to do, I'm just going to blow on this again, and I realize you can't feel it, but I'm going to tell you some of the things that I'm feeling, and that'll give you an idea, I hope, of how to use something like this. So I'm already feeling psychologically this thing where so immediately put it down, relax, shoulders back, chest open, let my head float as if I had something attached to the top of my skull and it was going straight up and I were hanging. Oh, so everything is lined up. So I'm not trying. I'm just letting the air come in. I'm letting the air flow out. And you know, that can be the most difficult thing to do because we're used to trying so hard to play the trumpet. So I'm going to show you another little exercise you can do, and this is with a piece of paper. It's very simple. Just take a simple 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, standard paper. Now, if you're watching carefully, you might be able to see I'm blowing an air stream from one corner to the other corner of the paper. Sometimes in the middle, sometimes I'm at one corner and the other. You can see the paper move. So I have control of how I'm blowing the air stream. Now this is more refined skill. And again, we're going to get into that later. We have to have ways of figuring out how to access it. But a simple thing to do, you got a piece of paper, just like that strip of newspaper or crepe paper is about 2 inches wide. You just hang it from a door frame and blow. Experiment with that. The main thing you're trying to do is recognize, am I or head coming forward? No. Just like easy toss. Now I want to suggest something to you, and this is an example of what I've mentioned quite a few times, body language. Body language is making a visual or a tactile sensation to your body that the body understands. So here's the one I want you to try. If you feel all the way down in your hips, if you can find the top of your hip bone, right in there, and below that, there's a thing called the pelvic floor. And it's a set of 2 different muscles. They go in 2 different directions. And that supports your guts. It's kind of important. And it's hard to feel, and most people have never thought about it. But if you relax and kind of, not as if you're at the beach trying to keep your chest looking manly, but rather as if you're nobody's watching and you just let your gut hang out. Then everything is going to settle down to the pelvic floor. Now that doesn't mean your posture is good. You got to watch those things as you work along, but see if you can feel this. Just let go and let it go all the way down. Now in the bottom there, if you can think of it like a shallow sink, and in the middle of the sink is a drain. So when you take the breath, and see, this doesn't make sense, but your body will understand it. Whether you're inhaling or exhaling, you're letting the air go down and fill the sink. And when you're exhaling, the sink is draining. And this is the opposite of the way most of us think. We're trying to pick up the air or squeeze the air or push the air instead of just letting it set down. If it settles all the way down where it's supported, everything in your playing is going to work better. And it's got to be a consistent kind of thing. If sometimes you're picking it up and you're kind of squeezing with the rib cage, squeezing in your chest, and compressing that air instead of letting the air column, here's another visualization, that column of air sits all the way down and rests on the foundation on your pelvic floor. You can feel it in your lower back, way down. You can feel it below your navel, maybe about 3 inches. And if you experiment with this. See if you can feel it. I realize this might be kind of wacky to some people, but I'm talking to you as if you were trying to be a world-class athlete, which is what you're trying to do if you're trying to master playing a musical instrument. You are an athlete, and you have to get in touch with the foundation of the musical result. So I'm going to blow a little bit more with this paper and then show you something quite interesting, which I hope will also be helpful. It gets into some of the other physical realities of trumpet playing as to when our embouchure actually starts vibrating. So now my throat's kind of scratchy because I've been teaching for a while. Unfortunate. So now Ooh, I need to relax. And I can immediately feel everything start to let go. That's a sign that you're doing it right. I'm going to refer to this again. Arnold Jacobs had a phrase that very few people understand, but when you physically feel it, you will understand. He used to say, weakness is your friend. See, we think strength is our friend. Jacob says weakness is your friend. And when I say let go and let that air column, that balloon of air, as it were, sit all the way down and fill the sink and rest in the sink, and everything else works around that. That's the beginning. Now, we're going to finish with something that you may or may not have seen before, and I hope you can see it today. Now I got 2 pieces of paper, and I'm just holding them between my thumb and forefinger, and I'm going to blow air through them. And I'm going to move the paper closer together. So that's a lot of air flow. I'm flowing many liters of air. Now you notice the paper start to rattle. As I hold it with a little bit more support, like this, that's how your lips work. See, the paper doesn't vibrate unless there's wind flowing between the paper and flowing past the paper. If the wind is flowing to the paper, it won't vibrate. It has to be flowing past the paper. Just as if, as I mentioned before, a bow on a string for a string instrument. The bow touches with the right amount of pressure, and you draw the bow, and that starts the vibration and sustains the vibration. So our air, like a bow, if the same amount of pressure, the same embouchure tension, as it were, if you want to think about it that way, the same amount of focus, the same size of the aperture, many ways of thinking about it. Some of them help our body, some of them help us to play, some of them don't. But if you have the same setup here, the lips are in proximity, like the paper, the same way. To play louder, you're flowing more air. To play softer, you're flowing less air. Isn't that interesting? So this is something for you to try. One thing that's good, you get a good blowing workout. Okay? So that's probably more than enough for today. And the main thing is you start experimenting, and as you blow, if you set up a pattern where you're just blowing comfortably, softly but consistently, a relaxed slow motion toss of the air all the way through with a good wind up. Now you're working on the foundation of your playing, and everything depends on. So I'm going to try and keep doing these. I got stalled out a little bit as we go forward. I hope that, again, my hope for all of you is that you're going to be able to get in touch with your own talent. Get in touch with the gifts that God has given you to find a way of expressing yourself while playing a musical instrument. And this is a worthwhile challenge. Sometimes we can get distracted from it pretty easily. But when you hear it happen, and it's glorious, and it's meaningful, and it's inspiring, then you know, oh, that's something I want to do. So if we're on the same page with that, all I can say is keep up the good work and enjoy yourself in the process. And I will see you next time. Have a good day.